Well, my curiosity is this is parenting you. Like, if you think about mom and dad, because you like you said, you're a mom now, and you think about if you have a kid that comes to you and is like, hey, I want to go to the Olympics. It's like, how do you like what did you
Mm.
learn from mom and dad as they were parenting you through that dream? And then now you as a mom, like if you had your kids come out to you, what would you do the same? What might you do different? Just like from parenting a kid that has a really ambitious dream of being an Olympic gold medalist and then actually pursuing it.
That's a great question, because I do have 4 kids now, and some that are getting into sports and different activities. And I've seen a lot of other parents, sports parents, that weren't so great too. So I've also seen what not to
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
And I think one of the best things that my parents did for me was they were very hands off. They were very much like, great, go do your thing. They would show up and they'd watch practices, but they never said anything about it. Just like, okay, good job. You did nice. That was great. Like they were positive, but they never really said much more than that. And they had taught me growing up, like how to commit to something. Like you're going to do this commitment, like, cause I remember doing softball and I thought softball was really cool. I love softball. I'd always played catch with my dad. I'd always hit with my dad. Like I thought it was fun, but I was on a really bad team because I started at like 13 and I just got stuck on like the last place team. And I was having a really hard time because I'd never done a team sport and everybody was so bad and we didn't practice and it drove me crazy. And I had such a hard time. I just wanted to quit and try something else. And they were like, no, you made a commitment. You're in it for the season. You're going to see it through. And so I think there's a lot of value in learning the difference between commitment, and learning like when you should move on and things like that. Because there's also like if you've been in gymnastics or something for 8 years, you've been committed. Just because you are maybe are done and this is it in the middle of a season, like that's a different kind of situation. So teaching them what real commitment is, seeing certain things through, understanding when to move on, when to stick with it. Like those are tough things. But a lot of it was that my parents taught me the big lessons and then let me figure it out. They let me fall down. They let me get back up on my own. And that's what created, because I get parents coming to me all the time. How do I make my kid passionate? And it's like, you can't make your kid passionate. Your kid has to develop that from within. And if you're trying to create that for them, it's going to backfire on you. You can't force someone into being passionate about it and working really hard. Like that has to be developed within them. And you have to trust the coaches that they're with. If you can't trust those coaches, maybe you're not on the right team. Like don't be coaching your kid on top of what they're getting. Like they're getting enough feedback. So it's kind of learning those things. And as my child is growing up, she's getting really involved in volleyball. She's just made the team and it's really cool to watch. And I'm actually really excited that I know nothing about volleyball and this has been brand new. So I don't really have the option to jump in and say anything because she did dive for a couple of years and she was on the little lessons and it was so hard sometimes not to coach her and not to say something. But I was like, she needs to figure this out. It needs to be her journey, and if she gets to the level where she's asking for my advice, then I'm going to offer it, and I'll make sure she commits. I'll make sure she's seeing those things through, but I've got to let her fall. And that's hard as a parent to like watch your kid fall down. But like, that's how we learn to walk when we're little, right? You can't just pick your kid up every time. Like they got to figure out how to pick themselves up and try again and try again. Like that's actually how we're naturally inclined. So we have to let our kids do that.
I just want to honor you and thank you for the distinction because in my mind, I was like, your parents didn't let you quit, but yeah, you said tennis and gymnastics and, softball and all these things to get to diving. So you had to stop those other things at one point to get to the diving. And if that's not quitting, then what is it called? And the way you described it was we committed, we follow through till the end of the season, and then it's okay to start something new. And I don't think that is really explained to a lot of these kids in a lot of cases where it's like, when they sign up, I'm assuming there was something like, hey, when you sign up for this sport, we're finishing the season. So it doesn't matter if you like it or you don't like it, but we're making the agreement today. And I don't think that conversation, I don't remember my parents having that conversation with me when I started playing like soccer or basketball or tennis or anything. It was just like, all right, cool. So I just want to acknowledge that little thought there that you said. So thank you for that. That was perfect.
It could be, yeah, but it could be that like those sports also have natural seasons where, you sign up for the spring and then you're done, where gymnastics wasn't maybe, I mean, I guess maybe it's sort of like that, but really it's like this year round, you're in it all the time kind of thing. So I didn't understand that going into these other sports. So that's why I had to be taught that, and I picked up on it because I was older, you know what I mean? So it's cool because we all have that different journey. So we learn it in different ways and at different times, and I think that impacts us in different ways.
Yeah, yeah. And I like the hands-off approach. I was planning on just living vicariously through my sons and just completely controlling every aspect of their sports career. But this is good advice. I'm obviously joking, but it is hard. I coach the baseball team, and I'm just like, I got like super into it, and it was really fun, and it was also really interesting to see like my own ego get tied up in like
Mm.
7-year-olds baseball, right, or whatever, and it was just like super funny from like a personal experience to just like watch your ego, show up. So, anyways, talk to me about diving in general because it's an interesting sport because um, it's so unique. It's so particular. You have to really pay attention to the details. I'll watch these divers at the Olympics, and I go, "That's a 10." And then you hear the announcers, and they're like, "Ooh, unfortunately, the way they entered the water, or the splash, or and you're like, look good to me." So, from your perspective, just help us understand the intricacies of diving. I'm just kind of curious from what are your thoughts on that, and how do you prepare for that? But then also, what's the meta lesson that you learned from diving that you can apply to life, or to say you're coaching clients? What would you say to that?
Well, there's so many. No, these are great questions. So it is very highly technical. It is very refined,
Right.
and it's so when you see the people at the top level, they do all perform really, really well, and it's easy to start playing the armchair quarterback, like, oh, there was a big splash on that, or oh, there was, we don't realize like the people that are there are all the best in the world, and so even the ones that like everybody has a bad dive every once in a while, so it's kind of funny to see people commenting on it at that level that don't totally understand it, but it is very acrobatic. Like a lot of people just call me a swimmer, and I'm like, y'all, I doggy paddle to the side. That's about like all the legit swimming that I do. But it very much is acrobatic, like gymnastics, trampoline. So we have a lot of former gymnasts, a lot of trampolinists, people like that are within our sport. And after they finish our sport, a lot of my friends are now going into the circus. They do like Cirque du Soleil. They perform on the back of cruise ships. There's now a high diving circuit where they're doing cliff diving off of 20 and 27 meters. That's like up to 90 feet. It's crazy. They dive off of castles and, buildings and off bridges into these giant bays. And it's crazy cool. But it is definitely a very unique sport. So that acrobatic skill set plays a big role in that kind of air awareness and stuff. And so it is highly technical because it's not like gymnastics where not to say gymnastics isn't highly technical. There's a lot involved in gymnastics, but landing, and trying to just land, you can kind of make up a little bit if you're short here or there, but diving, if you are not exact, it pays off big. You make a little mistake on the top, at the end of 33 feet, like you're going to have a big impact on the bottom. Like it's going to make a big difference. So we do a lot of video analysis, a lot of comparing, a lot of basic, drills all the time to kind of hammer in those details. And it's hard. Like the impacts, especially off of like a platform, are really difficult. Like I can't do 10-meter platform every single day. We did it at most like 3 days a week. And I did 4 for a while and I started getting injured. So 3 days a week was kind of the max that I could handle physically because you're hitting at 35 miles an hour. So it takes a toll on your body. It's like, 15 car accidents a day, per practice. So you got to be able to recover from that too. So there's a lot of like learning how to train smarter and kind of beat the system in that way too. It's not just about numbers, although numbers are really important. So trying to find that balance, it's a different sport in that way, but I love the challenge of that.